Hi folks, and welcome back to the Travels of Red Rover. I'm Sean.
And I'm Corrine.
And this week we're going to do something a little different. So we spent about 140 days on the road this summer, and we thought it would be useful to do a little bit of a retrospective today and talk about a little bit of some of the things that we really enjoyed, some of the things that we didn't enjoy, talk about the truck a little bit, what broke, what didn't break. We had an absolutely wonderful summer. Let's just say that to start off with. We had relatively few problems with the van during the summer, and most of the problems we did have either could be hobbled along until we got home, or we could get them fixed on the road, although it did mean we had to stay some places while parts arrived.
So one of the big items that we had to repair on the road was our furnace, because it was pretty cool when we first started out on our trip and we were at high elevations. Yeah, the main problem with the furnace really had to do with getting dirty air into the breather. We have a diesel fired furnace, and what we found is that the air intake hose was getting a lot of dust into it, and that was being sucked into the area that basically atomizes the diesel in order to make it burn more efficiently. So as you can probably hear, our furnace is currently running. It is located right in front of the back left rear tire. It's actually located just in about here. This is the muffler for it, and the actual furnace is right underneath this area right here. This is what the furnace looks like, tucked up underneath the side of the engine. Although it has worked, they work extremely well, it is a bit of a tight area to work on when you're trying to remove it. The actual clean air intake actually comes down through this hose right here, and I have it actually stuck. I actually have it stuck up in this hole here in an attempt to try to reduce the amount of dust that it sucks in. We don't run the furnace when we're driving, and one of the main reasons is to reduce the amount of or eliminate the dust that would actually come in from the clean air vent into the furnace. The great news is the folks that manufacture the furnace are absolutely fantastic at post-sale service, and they were really willing to turn around a repair on the furnace very, very quickly. So what we actually did is we ordered a second furnace, had them ship it to us UPS, and then we swapped in the new one and took out the existing one, and then we shipped it to them and they could rebuild it for us. So actually we have two furnaces now, one that's in and operating, and a second one that has been rebuilt by them, and as I said, they are really good at turning it around. I should also say they didn't make me buy a new furnace. At their suggestion, what we actually bought was a rebuilt furnace, which was a good deal less costly than buying the main furnace all over again. And one of the things that worked out pretty well, we were on the road at the time when we did the repair, but we found some friendly folks at an auto parts place and asked them if we could park in their back lot away from where their customers park and do the repair while we were there, so that if we didn't have any tools we needed, we could use the shop to buy any necessary supplies or tools. So in terms of other things that we had trouble with, we ran into little problems with our cabinet latches. They have a spring and some ball bearings that hold the latch in place. And after a lot of bumpy roads and opening and closing the hanging locker and the shower locker and our toilet locker, those cabinet catches have disintegrated. Yeah, and the second problem that we have with the latches is that
because of the rattling and shifting around, the little ball bearings got shaved, so we have little black metal filings all around the area where those latches are located. This is the closure unit that is deteriorating as we drive along. It actually works pretty well in terms of closing the door, but once we start to drive, the metal enclosure that goes between the two steel balls starts to shave the steel balls, resulting in kind of a black magnetic material. And you can actually see the remnants of that down below the holder right about there. And this is after I've cleaned this up several times. And we've decided to replace those with a strong magnetic latch. So here's a good example of the magnet that we've used to replace a lot of the closures that have the little steel balls in them. This has been terrific. It's a fairly strong magnet, so it does hold the door closed very efficiently. And as you can see, I have to tug on this a bit in order to get it back up again. And I've done that on both this cabinet and also on our hanging locker. And then we also used it to close the doors for the head storage box right down here. So as many of you know that have tracked us, we had Agile Off-Road rebuild the suspension for the van, and on the most part that suspension has been absolutely fantastic. I am so glad we did that. The van runs in a much more stable than it did prior to having the ride improvement springs and shocks added. Unfortunately, the only part on the suspension system on the front of the truck was the original shocks from Mercedes. And after the running on really gnarly back roads and bumpy roads and some real kind of exacting or aggressive off-road driving, we had managed to have both the seals on the left and the right side shocks actually explode on us and pretty much dump out their fluid on the wheel well. Fortunately for us, we were able to, because of the springs and the shocks that Agile had added to the front wheels, and I'll show you pictures of that, we were able to pretty much run on these sort of destroyed shocks until we managed to get home and get them repaired.
And it was a bit of a trick to get the repairs done.
The shocks the way that Agile rebuilt it, looks like there's a loaded spring which changes the shock into a strut, and a lot of the shock places refused to actually change the shock, feeling like it was beyond their capabilities, and it looks very, very beefy, which it is, but I'll point out that there's actually no load on the spring, so it actually, once you do the usual, remove the bolts from the shock just slides right out. So it's not a big deal. And fortunately, Agile, Jesus Hernandez at Agile, gave me lots of good coaching in terms of telling the folks what they needed to do. And actually, at the end of the day, actually found the local Sprinter repair shop that knew how to do the shocks. And then I took in Agile's video, and we watched the video together so that they would know how to take it apart and put it back together again. So it actually ended up working out just fine. But I have to say that without Jesus' help, it would have been a much more frustrating challenge getting that repaired. What we didn't know at the time was that driving on the broken shocks was actually destroying our tires. The tires became quite cupped and ended up having to be replaced.
I think it wasn't a break so much as how to be aware when you're driving down a dirt road We learned that it's good not to have your Fantastic fan or Max fan turned on and drawing air in from the back hatch while you're driving on dusty roads.
And if the Max fan is on, pulling air out of the van, which is the mode we normally have it in, it sucks all of the dust in through the back vent, in which the entire inside of the van becomes a dust bowl. So we learned that the hard way. Early on in the trip, driving down one of the dirt roads. So,
did you have anything else?
Yeah, I guess we had a couple electrical issues. One was a failure. One is a not really a failure. It's just not a good system. The failure is the monitor for the battery performance, both the voltage and percent available or percent charged. So it looks like it's probably wired incorrectly into our van, so that it only actually detects charging from either the engine or from a charger system into the side of the van. It doesn't actually charge any. It doesn't actually detect any of the solar charging. So even though we have a full day of solar, at the end of the day, we still look like we're losing percent charge. And the way we sort of got around that is just to look at the voltages instead of actually looking at the percent charge. So that was a way to get around it. It was fine for the rest of the summer, and it's a repair to be done during the winter time. The second issue is that we have a BMI style charger that charges the house batteries from the engine batteries. And of course we have...
From the alternator.
I'm sorry, from the alternator, right. We have house batteries, lithium house batteries, but we have wet acid starting battery, and we have that, and the car's alternator is set up, or the van's alternator is to set up for the correct voltages for the starting battery, which are incorrect for the lithium battery. So the BMI sits in between these two, and it doesn't allow the alternator to overcharge or undercharge the lithium battery at too low a voltage. And it's a good system from that point of view. The problem is it only actually allows the lithium batteries to charge for about 15 to maybe 20 amps per hour. And if you're down 200 amps and there's no solar power that day, or if you're in a cloudy, rainy day, you'd have to drive for at least 10 hours to bring your batteries back up. And of course, because the voltage charging from the alternator is lower than what the lithium you really only charge them up to about 80% before the system turns off. So I'm going to change that for what's called a DC to DC charger during the summer or during the winter time, and see if that'll improve our charging directly from the alternator.
So one of the things we've thought about regarding our energy use, we were very fortunate most of the time. We had very sunny weather, although a few times we were camped in locations that were quite shady. So we've been rethinking what we would do if we weren't doing a lot of driving that would get us out from under the trees, or we weren't driving and using the alternator to charge up the batteries.
About 30 to 40% of the power that we use in the van is actually the induction cooker. So, Crean likes to cook, which is great for me. I love that part, but it means that we use the cooker quite a bit.
Yeah, usually we did a hot breakfast, a second cup of coffee, and a hot dinner most days. When it got really hot, we'd have a cold dinner and cold lunch.
Yeah. But a lot of the time, even into the evening, our tradition is to have, even on relatively warm days, a hot drink before we go to bed. It just was what we've done for years.
And we also tended to use the induction cooktop after our meals to heat a kettle just for the hot water for cleaning up the dishes. And so we've decided, as a backup, we're going to have a little Coleman stove.
We've added this 2-burner propane stove, and then we run it off just the little 1-pound bottles when we need it. It sits here most of the time when we're actually using it, because there's a window right behind it that we can open, and right above us here, if we go up and look there, we have the fan that we turn on while we're running the stove. So all in all, that's taken the induction cook stove out of the picture, and it really is one of the biggest energy users when we're traveling. This is the induction cook stove we use. It's a inexpensive one that we purchased from IKEA, and Crean still prefers to use this when we've got lots of power. It's easy to whip out. There's no bottles of propane to worry about. She just plugs it in, throws the inverter on, and off we go. So when we're either driving a lot or when we've got lots of solar, Crean still prefers to use the induction stove.
And we're also considering getting a Jackery or similar type of inverter battery pack, so that we can run our computers from that directly rather than working on our house batteries. And that will give us a longer time on the house batteries so that we can keep the fridge running, our vent fan running, and the little fan that goes to the compost toilet.
One of the first things we did was to purchase a Jackery 1000. And you'd say, well, what do you need a Jackery 1000 when you've got 400 amp hours of lithium batteries? And where the lithium batteries, or not so much the lithium batteries, but the system in itself is very susceptible, and that is the when we have to turn the inverter on. We have a 3,000 watt inverter on the truck, and it draws energy as well as the energy in order to charge both the computers that we use on board. We also use a printer quite often as well, and all of those things can be on a good part of the day when we're working on board. The other thing we've been using it for is to power Corinne's slow cooker. She has a mini slow cooker that she likes to use, and it produces steam, so she likes to use it outside of the van whenever she can. And it turns out instead of running an extension cord from the van, we just take the Jackery out and run it from that, and it works quite well. So all in all, it's been quite a nice addition. The other feature that's turned out to be quite useful for the Jackery is that we can leave it plugged into the truck while we are driving and have it charge right from the alternator. And it seems that, when we drive 5, 6, 7 hours, it charges up pretty quickly, and consequently it's always available for additional use. So we're obviously not sponsored by Jackery, but we love this device, and it's been a great addition to the truck. So anything else really broke or that was an issue? Oh, I know one other thing. I think we have a dead solar panel.
Perhaps.
We
had a hailstorm while we were on the road, and we weren't underneath trees, so I think we had quite a few hailstones hit those panels.
Yeah, we really got blasted. In fact, we have dents all along both sides of the top of the van from, what would you say, golf ball size hail? I mean, they were pretty large pieces of hail coming down. So I think maybe one of the panels might have gotten damaged, and I need to go through the effort to figure out which panel is damaged. The reason we're saying that is that we've gone from having a full sun charge of in around about 350 watts to having a maximum in around about 250 watts. So there appears to be, we've lost about 100 watts of charging, and I'm going to have to get up there and figure out which panel is broken. In fact, I'm going to have to figure out how to figure out which panel is broken and get a replacement. Well, I did figure out a way to test the panels. And step number 1, as part of that test, is to get up there and clean them all. I also checked all the connections at the top of the truck to make sure that they were clean and tight. I also made sure to go down and check the electrical box, make sure that each of the solar breakers was working correctly, and that the MPT charger was also working correctly. I also made sure that all of the wires were firmly attached. So after getting the solar panels nice and clean, the next step was to cut a number of cardboard pieces that would completely cover the panels up above. And the way I did this was to actually create 4 separate cardboard panel covers so that I could test each of the panels by themselves. You can see one of the completed panels to the left-hand side of the boxes. Next step was to cover the solar panels. Each box covered each panel. And the way I tested was to take readings with all of the panels covered, with none of the panels covered, and then only covering one panel at a time. The results were very anticlimactic. It turns out that the panels were all producing at about the same levels. If you have any idea why I'm still seeing poor performance from the solar panels, please put your thoughts down in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. So I didn't figure out what was going on with the panels, but I did get to spend an absolutely beautiful day out in the Spring Mountains. What can be better than that? One of the things we forgot to mention while we were having our discussion was our front windshield. This year we came across a lot of new road construction, and the construction was a little different in the sense that it wasn't using the typical asphalt type of recovering that they were doing. Quite frequently was laying down some kind of road chip and then putting tar over top of it. And while they were, prior to getting the tar down, and while the road chips were just sort of lying on the top of the surface, they were very dangerous flying projectiles, especially off the wheels of any kind of large truck or RV that might be in front of you. So consequently, across the summer, we managed to get 5 breaks in the window, in the windshield, and consequently, at the end of the summer, we had to have the windshield replaced. So that's about everything I can think of in terms of breakage. I mean, in terms of the roads that we were on and the places that we went, the van turned out to be exceptionally terrific platform to work from. So we're very happy about all of that. Well, Karina and I hope you found today's video useful. If you did, we'd sure appreciate you gave us a thumbs up. If you'd like to keep track of us and watch more videos, please subscribe. And as always, don't forget to hit that bell button if you want to be informed of when we release videos. Take care, and bye for now.